The rear derailleur is the technology in the bicycle that allows you to adjust the effort and speed to the respective route conditions. But how does it work exactly? The rear derailleur allows you to change the gear ratio between the pedal crank and the rear wheel. The shifter on the handlebar is connected to the rear derailleur and the chainring derailleur via Bowden cables. This means that by operating the shifter on the handlebars, the chain can jump up or down a cogwheel and thus shift up or down a gear. The smaller the chainring on the pedal crank and the larger the cogwheel on the rear wheel on which the chain lies, the smaller the gear and the less effort is required when riding. In this video, we show you how to adjust your shifter correctly. If the chain grinds on the front derailleur or the chain jumps over the sprockets, the limit of the front derailleur must be corrected. We show you how to do this in the first part of the video. If the chain does not climb correctly onto the next chainring at the rear of the sprocket set, or if the chain jumps over the sprockets, the swing range of the rear derailleur must be adjusted. We show you how to do this in the second part of the video. We start with the adjustment of the front derailleur. All you need to adjust the front derailleur is a cross-tip screwdriver. Your front derailleur has two adjustment screws. The L screw, with which you can adjust the lower limit so that the chain does not fall off the smallest chainring. And the H screw, with which you can adjust the upper limit so that the chain does not fall off the largest chainring. To set the lower limit, shift the smallest chainring at the front and the largest sprocket at the rear. The distance between the chain and the inner guide plate should be just large enough to fit a 10-cent piece. If the distance is less, the derailleur is too limited. You can correct this by unscrewing the L screw a little. However, if the distance is too large, screw in the L screw a little. Repeat the process with the upper limit and the H screw. Shift to the smallest sprocket at the rear and the largest chainring at the front. There should be a small gap between the chain and the outer guide plate so that the chain does not drag. If your chain is dragging, the derailleur is too limited and you need to unscrew the H screw a little. However, if the gap between the chain and the outer guide plate is too large, you must limit your derailleur more so that the chain does not fall off the largest chainring. Now let's move on to the rear derailleur. If the rear derailleur no longer works properly and it shifts by more than one cog per gear, for example, or not at all, we will show you how to adjust it correctly again. To adjust the rear derailleur, all you need is a cross-tip screwdriver. Adjusting the rear derailleur, as with the front derailleur, is a fine adjustment of the L for low and H for high screws and the associated upper and lower stops. Turn the pedal crank and shift to the uppermost stop. The chain will now jump onto the top sprocket. If it does not do this on its own, you can help it along by hand. Now open or close the L screw so that the shifting roller runs parallel to the top cogwheel. When you have reached the point where, when you turn the pedal crank and shift, you reach the top gear and the chain line is parallel, you have set the top stop perfectly. Now we come to the adjustment of the lower stop. If your model has a tension screw, remove the tension. Turn the pedal crank and shift to the lowest stop. The chain now jumps onto the lowest sprocket. You can also help it along by hand if the normal shifting process does not work. If the chain cannot be shifted to the smallest cogwheel, the shifting is too limited. Loosen the H screw a little. However, if the limit is set too low, the chain can jump off the sprocket set. In this case, tighten the screw. Now you have set the lower stop. Now we come to the fine adjustment of the tension screw. Turn the pedal crank and shift up gear by gear at the same time. If the chain does not jump up one cog with each shift, increase the tension by unscrewing the tension screw on the handlebars. Now shift all gears again. If your gears shift a little too late, the tension must be increased. If the shifter gears too early, you have to take out some of the tension by screwing the tension screw in. Then try all the gears again. from top to bottom and from bottom to top. And watch the cogwheel again. Perfect! Now the chain jumps up or down one cog with each gear. That's it! Now nothing stands in the way of your next bike ride. Have fun taking off!
Bergsteiger. Fahrräder, die bewegen.